Hi, I'm Jennifer Fletcher, faculty in the Division of Humanities and Communication at California State University, Monterey Bay. The course you are enrolled in is fully online, and most of the activities, with the exception of the midterm, are asynchronous, meaning that students and the instructor don't have to be online at the same time. Readings and written assignments do have fixed deadlines, and all assignments, quizzes, and tests will be submitted through the course website. The fact that this course is online places a higher burden of responsibility on you, the student, for meeting all the course outcomes. You'll need to read the text carefully and thoroughly, respond to all the discussion forums thoughtfully and in a timely manner, keep track of quiz and midterm dates, and submit all assignments by their deadlines. You'll need to take ownership for your learning throughout the term. You'll also be responsible for making sure your participation in our online discussions is courteous and productive. Please observe professional standards for online conduct. I often tell students that the most that I can do for them in class is to make labels for the file folders in their brains that they're going to have to fill with content themselves. At the post-secondary level, more learning must happen outside of class than in, and students must read and write extensively and independently if they're going to meet course outcomes. This is particularly true when a class doesn't meet face-to-face. While I can help organize and facilitate your learning, I can't do the learning for you. The problem with labeled file folders that aren't filled through hard academic work is that they can become the home of superficial thinking. Thus, at the university level, accountability for becoming an educated person primarily resides with the students. This is the idea of reading for a degree versus earning credits for a degree. You are not practicing how to read and write when a professor forces you to do so. You are practicing how to read and write for authentic audiences, purposes, and occasions as part of a lifelong habit of literacy and learning. Because reading is your responsibility, I rarely give low-level reading quizzes on assigned texts as an accountability measure. The evidence for whether or not students are reading extensively and independently is in the student's speech and writing. Proficiency in academic writing depends on fluency in academic reading. If you're not regularly reading complex and scholarly texts, and I'd say more than 10 hours per week for a class at this level, your writing cannot improve beyond its current level. Let's take a closer look at the course description for HCOM 454, History of Victorian Britain. This course examines the social and ideological structures that shape the dominant concerns of the Victorian age in Great Britain. Among these concerns are the roles of men and women, industrialization, class struggle, sexuality, racial difference, poverty and disease, education, and social change. Drawing on a wide range of historical evidence, including literary and non-literary texts, this HCOM course integrates diverse, generic, and disciplinary perspectives in its analysis of these interrelated issues. The course provides opportunities to explore and apply methods of sociocultural historical research and offers built-in assessment in HCOM MLO 7, that's historical analysis. So some big questions that we'll address throughout this course. How is historical evidence created and preserved? What counts as evidence? What can we learn from primary sources and from secondary sources? What can we learn from Victorian nonfiction and from Victorian fiction? How is history narrated? How is change narrated? And what are the relationships between institutions and social practices? Also, what are the relationships between ideology and social practice? You'll find that in some of the texts that we read, what people say they value or believe is not always the same as what it turns out they do. What are the differences between political, economic history, and social history? And what is cultural history? Lastly, how does 19th century prose differ from later writings on the period? So we'll get into actually looking at the style, the language itself, and how things like diction and syntax change across historical periods. So the preceding questions give us an important framework for our engagement with the course readings and topics. Using a contextualized and reflective approach to historical study, this class examines the ways primary and secondary sources reflect and help constitute shared understandings of Victorian concepts and values, both in the 19th century and in our own time. We'll study, for example, how British writers, legislators, reformers, journalists, and religious leaders defined and often challenged emerging class and gender norms. We'll likewise investigate the ways that Victorian stereotypes, for example, the angel in the house, or the Victorian prude, or the captain of industry, have been perpetuated and or undermined by later scholarship and cultural movements. Beginning with the study of social change in the 1830s, and you'll hear change as really being the keynote of the course, our class will move from an examination of gender ideals and social issues at mid-century to a reassessment of those ideals and issues by the century's end. And we'll conclude with a consideration of how neo-Victorian movements like steampunk have altered the Victorian cultural legacy. Now, you'll have several PowerPoint presentations to view that include audio, but no video. The audio was recorded during the face-to-face version of this class. And you want to be sure to take notes from the PowerPoints with the audio, because you'll hear content from the lectures that is not spelled out on the slides. I hope that you'll find the class enjoyable and meaningful, and I look forward to working with you this term. Thank you.